Hi there, welcome once again to the Dukascopy TV studio. I'm Ben Jones. Alongside me to discuss recruitment in the commodity market sector is Edward Cullen from Swisslinx. Edward, thank you very much for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much for the invite, Ben. Nice to be here.
Not a problem. Now, can you begin by discussing very generally recruitment in the commodity market sector? How is it bearing up at the moment?
I think generally the sector as a whole is still healthy in Switzerland. There is undeniably a fair degree of pressure for some of our client firms depending on the margins that they see in the commodities they trade, but regionally within Switzerland, Zug, Geneva and Lugano all hold up relatively well overall. It's still generally a positive sector within the country.
Okay, now can you discuss some of the trends that we're seeing recently within this sector and how are these trends helping the sector to develop?
Yeah, I mean, particularly what we have seen over the last 18 months to 2 years serving this sector solely as our client base, or my client base within Swisslinx, is some quite interesting developments. The traditional trading firms who mainly have worked in the past on purely working on the margins, they can arbitrage between different opportunities depending on their strategies, they have actually moved more into the acquisition of physical assets. Now, what that means is that they are actually needing to attract talent, if you will, in that sector. So generally that would be a demand for people maybe who come from an investment banking background with an M&A focus, people who work on corporate funding for those entities because physical assets are, unfortunately for them, you know, a very expensive thing to acquire. If you need to buy an oil refinery, you're looking at writing a very large check and that money has to be raised from somewhere. The other interesting development has been around compliance. Increasingly, as the sector has seen a greater public awareness or focus or spotlight in terms of the activities it actually carries out, compared to say 10, 15 years ago, where it was very much more you know, not such a public topic, that has actually led to firms engaging more with the general population. That has come in the form of showing a greater awareness or respect for the need for compliance professionals. Now, those compliance professionals, when you say compliance, it's something that has been widely reported about the banking sector over the last few years, particularly with some of the activities that have gone on there. On the commodities side, some of these firms are switching from their traditional models of privately owned partnerships to public listings. The best example being Glencore, and the most famous certainly. The background to that is that there is a certain need as a listed entity to have a dedicated compliance team to make sure the company operates within the guidelines for the market it is listed in. And also, even the companies that are still privately held, they now have created in many cases compliance teams, compliance departments within their operations to act in a more forward and preemptive, I suppose would be the way to put it, engagement of this topic specifically. And those people maybe are coming more so from the banking sector, as well as some of the larger corporate environments, particularly maybe around some of the chemical sectors or some of the niche chemical companies. They are coming on board to develop the compliance functions within those firms from the ground up.
Okay, now over the past few years, how has the model of recruitment changed globally?
Globally, I mean, we have offices in Zurich covering Switzerland, Dubai and then Singapore. So it's very interesting comparatively to see the trends or, the current themes that exist between those three offices. I think on a global basis, you could say that the model has changed so that, the traditional mandate way of operating is something that has definitely dropped off. I think clients don't see the need anymore in terms of writing a check before actually they receive anything, which for us actually suits our way of working, to be honest, because we operate on a success-only basis. So it's an interesting way to develop. The other change has been clients looking to source directly from the markets themselves, either having an in-house recruitment team or using very large social media and advertising board-based advertising campaigns to attract the right people. Now, the background of that has a flip side. We have actually seen in the last 12 months several firms come to us to say, look, we tried going direct, but we couldn't find the right people you need, because you have to hope that the people that you want are actually A, looking for a new job, and B, happy to be looking using the medium that you're trying to source through. In those cases, we're actually able to successfully complete searches for clients because they were after a very niche skill set, and they actually found that we added value through the sectors that we cover specifically, and the knowledge that we had about where those people could be found.
Okay, and finally, looking more specifically in Switzerland, how's the situation changed?
Switzerland, there's been a lot in the press over the last couple of years, I think particularly on commodities as a whole in terms of who's here and what they do. There is normally somewhere in that coverage a question of Switzerland being a trading hub. It has been a very successful hoster of commodity trading firms for many years, and there is pressure definitely. People always want to have businesses that will bring revenue to and contribute to GDP for their nations. So when you look at Singapore and Dubai potentially as other hubs, there we have seen some firms that have moved positions or relocated for other business reasons to be closer to their primary markets, tax, whatever it may be. But generally, I think the picture for Switzerland is still pretty positive. It's a stable environment, politically, legally. The tax environment is still very beneficial compared to many other international locations. The workforce is mobile, well educated, particularly if it's an establishing company. The benefit that they have locally is that there are a lot of people actually who have worked 15, 20 years in the sector. So if they need experienced, safe hands in terms of getting an office up and running, it is definitely an option here relatively easily. With regard to the personal side of things, Switzerland recently was voted the top nation to A, attract and B, retain talent within. Speaking as an English guy living in Switzerland, the benefits compared to some of the other locations in Europe and globally are still very nice to have. We have seen, as I mentioned, some movement outside of Switzerland in terms of functions on clients relocating offices, but that is equally counterweighted by, over the last 18 months, some very interesting projects we've worked on for clients who were actually establishing offices here from a greenfield site. The background to that is regionally they're coming from North America, from the CIS, a couple from the Far East. They still see Switzerland for those reasons in terms of the workforce, the taxation, the flexibility it offers and the stability, and not to be forgetting that it's pretty centrally located on the time zone side of things, so offers a good operational base if you're both looking west and east.
Fantastic. Edward, once again, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Ben.
And thank you for watching. Do make sure you keep clicking back to Dukascopy TV, as we'll be bringing you plenty more updates and exclusive interviews. Bye for now.